Commissioner Kaufman, Commissioner Islam,
Present.
Commissioner Keener.
Here.
Chair Fletcher, quorum is established.
Thank you. And Commissioner Kaufman is having trouble logging in, but she'll be joining us shortly, I hope. I would like to push off approval of the minutes until our next meeting, October 28th. I haven't had a chance to read them. They just arrived. So we're gonna push those off. And
we haven't, I just wanted to check, and we haven't received the minutes for November 23rd. That's correct, right?
yes, as I understand it, that's correct. Yep. Communications and correspondence from the public. There was nothing received, so I don't think we have an item there. And I'm always pausing for someone to step in and correct me. We're up to item number 5, report on activities of the Office of Climate Change, Sustainability and Resiliency. And we have Nicola Hedge to walk us through that. Thanks for joining us. The floor is yours.
Yes, thank you, Chair Fletcher. Good morning, everybody. Happy Friday. Certainly quite a week, quite a time. Hope everybody is doing well after especially these, really historic rains, which certainly caused some damage. And, obviously a lot of other overall concerns going on with regard to the water, the cyber attack. And so, a lot of important work happening among many stakeholders in the city to remain resilient in the face of many challenges and changes right now, obviously with the backdrop of still a global pandemic. So sending my best to everybody. I know we've been still working forward on a number of items through the Office of Climate Change, Sustainability and Resiliency. Last week, I know we hosted the Community Advisory Hui for Climate Ready Oahu. For anyone interested in catching up with that meeting, if you were not able to attend, we do have all those materials at climatereadyoahu.org/advisory hyphen Hui. So I also just want to thank Commission Chair Fletcher for his additional volunteering and participation as a Hui member. We really appreciate your time and extra attention beyond this service as well. We also did welcome 4 new AmeriCorps Vista members last week to the city. We're super excited to have these really talented folks join our team for the upcoming year of service through the VISTA program. So that's Matt, he will be serving within our office, Jacob with the Department of Parks and Rec, and Nanda and Jacqueline with the Department of Emergency Management. So we're really excited for their tenure and to continue to be able to find ways to help build the capacity for programs and policies and projects as it relates to our resilience goals. Certainly, once it cleared up last week, I do just want to share our team was out and about. We do a lot of work on plans and strategies and actions and projects, but we actually got to roll up our sleeves a little bit last week and get out around the Civic Center campus and volunteered around some of the storm drain markings with decals to just continue to remind community in our own backyard here on the city campus that what goes down the storm drains goes to a stream or straight to the ocean too. So definitely, if folks are ever interested, our Department of Facilities Maintenance has a great Malama Ka'aina program. And I can put the link in the chat for folks if folks are ever interested in getting groups out to work with us and with the city on some different kinds of volunteer projects. Other city, resilience office staff did get out with other city departments for some other post-storm cleanup on Waikiki Beach over the weekend, and just want to really thank a lot of the leaders down there for the work through this week for that, to really make sure that we help lean in for the storm cleanup. I do also want to share some good news. This week, the city was recognized, City and County of Honolulu was recognized as one of the top 3 most improved cities across the country in our work around clean energy and transportation initiatives as it relates to our climate action work, because of the strong leadership from you all, the community, city leadership, many city departments coming together to move forward a lot of projects, plans, policies, and actions. And so that's really exciting. That was with the ACEEE national, I think it's a Clean Cities report card. We can put a link in the chat to that also. The city jumped 17 places as compared with our peers, from 41st last year to 24th, I believe. So I think that, report cards are report cards, but it is a nice note to sort of take stock of the progress, the collective actions, that we are moving forward, and sort of how that ranks against sort of peer cities. Still a lot to do, a lot to learn from others, and we're excited to make it top 25, maybe top 15 next year. We would lastly, I'd like to just share that we also have been following up on the building benchmarking, the building energy and water benchmarking project that I know our energy program manager, Ben Sullivan, has been before you all to share. We submitted an update as requested by council from resolution 21-229. And we also have some open houses scheduled for January, the 20th and the 26th. We can also put those links in the chat, but folks can go to resilientoahu.org/energy and can find information about those open houses. And that really complements a lot of one-on-one outreach that our office has been doing to various stakeholders, and look forward to continue to do in the new year to move this forward as well. So with that, that was probably all that I had to share. I just wanted to make sure, given this is the last meeting of the year, to wish you all, a very happy, certainly a very healthy conclusion to 2021. And just thank you all for, again, your service over the course of the year, and look forward to much ahead in 2022 and the conversation ahead today about that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Nicole. Commissioners, any questions or comments? Let the record show that Commissioner Kaufman has joined us.
Sorry about that. I don't know why the Zoom link I couldn't get it to work, but thank you, Haley, for troubleshooting.
Yeah, we all had a little rough patch there getting on, not just you. Public, any comments or questions for the office, sustainability office? Or I guess resilience office, I should refer to.
I'm supposed to schedule something.
Nancy? Nope.
Oh, I'm
mic-
sorry.
Yeah, your mic's on. Okay, yeah. Oh, I just wanted to mention with regard to that event last weekend. So that was a Kona low that came in from the south. We had a unusually high tide, maybe from the low pressure associated with the storm, but we had 6 to 8 inches of high tide water above the predicted tide. We had a storm in the North Pacific that was more northerly than the storms tend to be earlier in the season. So it was throwing waves almost straight from the north, so it was hitting the windward sides. And then that Kona came in and brought south winds and south swell, and it was a perfect storm. It was a classic compound event. I shouldn't say classic because they have not historically been common, but unfortunately they're probably going to be growing more common. And there was just some amazing footage on Instagram that one of my daughters sent me, showing a car going down Kalakaua Avenue. The water level was up and under the carriages of parked cars nearby. And, it must have been 2 feet deep. I heard from someone else that there was footage of people swimming on Kalakaua Avenue. Kalakaua, by the way, is the third most valuable retail block in the country after Rodeo Drive and Fifth Avenue. And the footage was near the Apple Store. And if you look at the imagery, there's the water level in the road, then there's this embankment of this vegetated embankment up to where the foot traffic goes, and then the storefront. And all of this is elevated above where the water level was. And it's newly renovated and apparently in conformance with the base flood elevations that are modeled by FEMA. And so, it appears that raising that commercial storefront area per the flood insurance rate map guidelines, the National Flood Insurance Program, appeared to be effective, at least during that particular event. And it also, this embankment off the road and then a wide footpath area before you get to the storefront, that's consistent with the guidance that DPP put out a month or two ago with regard to community design, building design with regard to sea level rise. So there were some successes there as we watched the water rise. Okay. Well, we're up to the discussion portion here, which is the main agenda item, discussion on commission priorities and work plan. There are a couple of things to go through. Let's see, Rosie or Vicky, should we do the Red Hill issue now to discuss that?
So you had kind of asked me to facilitate the conversation, and so
Yeah.
do you want to facilitate it, or
No.
how do you want this? Okay. All
Thank
right.
you for reminding me. It's all yours.
Great. So I thought that we do have a lot of kind of arising and emerging issues, but and I think those, we will not forget those. But I wanted to have us go through and have each commissioner kind of present, or not present in a formal way, but detail for us so that we can kind of take note, and as a committee together format what our priorities are for the next year, and then kind of into that integrate some of the more short-term things such as Red Hill, as Chip presented. So I think you had been, we have done this before. I think when Vicky stepped off as the chair, we had the opportunity to talk about what those priorities were. I don't have a recollection of if we had, how much of that we followed up on. So if you kind of, if you recall those conversations, and if we haven't gotten to them, that might be a chance to help us all remember what those were. Or if your priorities have changed, that's also a great opportunity to update us. And so with that in mind, I actually thought that we would start with the newest commission member, Melanie Islam. And I know just from the pre-conversations as we were getting ready to start the meeting that actually dovetails with something that Chip is interested in. So perhaps we can start with Melanie, and then I suggest Chip's student can perhaps share and support some of her ideas.
Sure. Thanks, Rosie. So I'll just start off. I guess it's my first time kind of planning for the year. So I'm going to sort of share themes that are important to me, just coming from the role that I play in the building sector. So I think just to set the stage, I think it's really important that we start to investigate and incorporate as much new policy and code that addresses changes in our climate and decarbonization, because that just really helps to elevate our floor, right? So then that speaks to interest in how do we start to investigate zero energy, zero carbon buildings in both the private and public sector. What are alignments to building performance standards that we can look at? There's a lot of municipal cities out there that are already starting to establish this. First, looking at the larger sort of planning scale, how can that perhaps happen in districts and then maybe perhaps happen within buildings? I think there's a value in also having a conversation about green affordable housing that helps to sort of synergize the need and the deficit that we have right now in the housing market, but also alignment with what we need to do in terms of new building. I have a personal interest in looking at, I think, the scope 3 emissions and the embodied carbon impacts with building sector. I know that we are an island nation, and so this conversation of carbon coming to our place is a big one, but I think there could be opportunities to investigate what we manufacture, what we build here, look at what our circular economies could be in terms of what we could reuse and return back into the building material sort of stock. So I think there's some investigation that could be had there and just investigate sort of the value of building reuse. I also think, I mean, there's a multitude of things. I think there needs to be a broader conversation about adaptation of our building. Chip, I think the point that you brought up that, you know, just observations from this recent storm, right, that building towards an established, you know, firm level of flood level is valuable. Looking at sort of the setbacks, that's valuable. How do we have more integrated, robust conversations early on? Because the truth is that all of these codes and ordinances that we put into place, they don't actually get implemented till a couple of years down the line, right? And at that point, it's too late to sort of change that. So we need to instill the most advanced codes possible, but also have that ability to investigate how ready the market is. And I think the last thing that would be of interest, just with the switching of our grid right now, is what are the roles that buildings play in sort of grid optimization? What value can buildings, districts of buildings, portfolio of buildings sort of play to sort of offset greenhouse gas emissions? So those are my themes. Oh yeah, probably a good segue to some other topics. Yeah.
Thank you. So at this time, I don't know, Chip mentioned that there was a presentation. I don't know if the host can provide share screen opportunity, but perhaps Ryan can share screen or, you know, just speak.
So I can show the slides, or Haley, if you can give Ryan share screen, he can show them, and that would be preferable.
I think I got it. Can
Great.
you guys see? All right, are my slides showing?
Yes, looks good.
All right, cool. So hi, everyone. Hi, commissioners. My name is Ryan Ringet. I am a graduate assistant through the Healy Foundation. And yeah, I've been working with Commissioner Chip, or Chair Chip, on guidance paper topics. So today I'm going to talk about building performance standards. I just have 2 quick slides. So building performance standards, existing buildings account for 35% of Oahu's greenhouse gases. And that's from the latest climate action plan from the city and county of Honolulu. And building performance standards are a decarbonization strategy that establishes performance levels that buildings must achieve. So these include energy use metrics, water, and emissions, or can include these. So for example, New York City enacted Local Law 97 in 2019, and this put greenhouse gas emission caps on the city's largest buildings starting 2024. They're looking at reducing maybe 40% of their building's emissions by 2030. And it also sets emissions intensity limits for 10 building categories. But like Commissioner Islam said, these are fairly new. So no building performance standards have been fully implemented. Although other places like Washington, DC, Washington State, and St. Louis have enacted these building performance standards. So for the City and County of Honolulu, in the Climate Action Plan, Action 5.2 and 5.3, talk about building performance standards. So in 5.2, this is looking at the year 2021, 2022. It's looking for the city to have building performance standards for city facilities. And then in 2022 and 2023, having building performance standards for commercial and multifamily buildings. So it's kind of in line with the City and County of Honolulu's Climate Action Plan. So what we're proposing is to have a guidance paper look at building performance standards from other states and countries to see what these places are doing, because everyone's doing it a little differently, and recommend what the city could explore in developing a building performance standard. So that is it. I can take any questions or comments.
That was great, Ryan. Thanks very much. And I would amend Ryan's language there at the end. We're not proposing to take on this paper ourselves. There was just a topic that we thought we should throw out on the table for discussion. And I think it fits in with Melanie's discussion really well.
Great. Thank you so much, Ryan. And thank you, Melanie. I don't know, Melanie, I was actually wanting to ask you if you had any response to what Ryan presented, if you thought that it dovetailed really nicely, if it stimulated any additional kind of ideas.
No, it's very much in line with what I'm thinking. So local law 97 out of New York is right now the most progressive building performance standard with very direct carbon emission reductions based on building types. I definitely think it'd be great to sort of see our city get there. And it is a conversation I think that many people are having. And I think part of that shift is changing how we start to report buildings from an, sort of changing the thought from energy use index to sort of a carbon emission index reduction sort of factor, right? That kind of shifts that thinking. But yeah, definitely I think this is something that is valuable. I could see this being in alignment with some of the other sort of professional organizations as well too, in terms of if there is interest to kind of put together sort of a white paper, guidance paper on this topic. So we actually, for AIA Honolulu for DNA, brought out John Mandyke, whose organization Urban Green helped to author and be part of Local Law 97. So if there is interest from the commission to sort of learn more about that, we can sort of help to sort of facilitate that conversation as well too. So.
Great, thank you. So I'm gonna flag that as a potential kind of clear guidance document, and I think we can all clearly see that perhaps Ryan could work with Melanie on that, taking the lead. Of course, other people who are interested can help support that effort. At this time, I'm gonna ask Commissioner Kaufman. Oh, sorry, McKenna, did you raise your hand to talk, or because you had something to
No, I have a question in follow-up to this before we sort of close out. Elements of this sound similar to the guidance document that Bettina had started, that's been transferred over to your Kuleana, Melanie, and I'm wondering if your interest is to sort of separate them or to integrate and build off of it. I'm just curious.
There is some integration of BPS folded into the document right now into the new draft outline. But I think, and so we'll just sort of touch upon it, but I think probably if we do sort of a subsequent paper on BPS, we could probably dovetail more intently and probably identify, I think, barriers in our market as well too, because there will be, I think, a lot of discussion about, is our market ready for this? How does our labor, how does our profession, how does our workforce address this, right? Because I would suggest and think that the time frame would be rather immediate as well too, to meet our targets that are set in the CAP. So I think it owes itself to probably be its own paper and look at maybe more specific cities that are very similar to us in scale, even locale as well too.
Thank you.
Great. And Commissioner Kaufman, since you spoke up, you get to be next. Just as a reminder, when we had this discussion in June of 2021, your main concern was to hear from CCSR about any needs that the commission could help with. And I'm sorry, I'm just literally kind of paraphrasing off of our minutes, just so you know, the minutes from June 2021. And then, of course, Director Gonzer had responded that really it was the Climate Adaptation Strategy Project and the Climate Ready Oahu. Those were the main things. So just as a kind of jog your memory, I don't know if you have identified any additional, but we'd love to hear from you on that.
Thanks, Rosie. Thanks for jogging my memory. So my timeline is up. My 5 years of service is up this summer. And so I will be rolling off the commission. So I'm sort of thinking about, not rolling off this work, right? Very committed to the work of the commission and climate change issues. But anyways, just a heads up to CCSR as well in terms of thinking about next rotations in. So I guess I'm sort of thinking about my efforts on the commission for more of a 6-month time frame. And my interest there is really, I think, to have the follow-up conversations in regards to internal social cost of carbon pricing decision-making issues. So we released the white paper. I think it's sort of had time to get out there and information wise. And when we had that conversation, Director Gonzer had said, perhaps we need a little bit of training in the city to think about what it would take to actually operationalize this, because that was very conceptual. And I think I would be really interested in thinking that through, thinking through like the budgeting processes that occur and how those could be amended to truly incorporate an internal carbon price such that carbon is being incorporated into city decisions on a more day-to-day basis.
Thanks, McKenna. I really love getting down to the nuts and bolts of thinking about how we actually, how we manifest and actualize these things. Does anybody have any kind of response or thoughts to what McKenna's thinking? Thumbs
I
up.
like it. I support it. I think it's a great direction to go.
Awesome. Great. Okay, I'm putting that down. And then Director, sorry, too many titles. Please
You can
don't
call me
put
Chip.
that part in the notes. Commissioner Keener, I was going to turn to you. So just as a reminder, you were rolling off as the chair, and you were also interested in knowing if there were any sectors that OCCSR wanted us to reach out to learn from, particularly with regard to community-based stewardship, maybe environmental-based groups. And you were also really interested in invasive species councils, but in particular was thinking, Director Gonzer had said that the Board of Water Supply is I think one of the critical entities who engages with the DLNR around invasive species. So I was wondering if you you had new ideas or kind of wanted to lean again further on that.
Thanks, Rosie, and great suggestions from the rest of the commission thus far. It's an exciting way looking forward. I did want to bring up a couple other things that I recalled that we had targeted for priorities for this past year and just kind of check in on them. We had started some work with sorry, the term is evading me right now. The ecosystem-based solutions, nature-based solutions, there we go, to looking at different problems. So we'd had a couple talks on that and nothing really stuck. So I'm not sure if that could fold in with the kind of looking forward with Board of Water Supply and invasive species conversations, but I do think there is a lot to be done in terms of the non-human aspects of climate. Ecosystems and looking at that as well. So I'll put a pin in that for now. But the other things that I remember that we discussed as potential priorities were looking at extreme heat impacts on the city, and there has been, some great work done at the city scale with the heat mapping project and follow-ups onto that. But maybe Chip could remind me if there is actually a guidance document that is looking at kind of extreme heat for the city, or there we go. Okay, so still in progress. No need to talk about that. I know you're on it. Okay, good to know. The next one was the update of the climate brief. And so I know that's something that we've been trying to get out for a while, and I've seen a couple iterations of it go back and forth. Are you going to hold that up too, Chip? Yes. So there's a way that we can more conveniently, I think, mesh that with the NCA 5 process that's going on, National Climate Assessment, 5th assessment that's going on right now. So we're gathering all of the kind of updates and relevant information at a regional and local scale that can be folded into that right now. So I haven't seen it in a while, but I'm happy to, if it recirculates sometime, to start folding new things in, and then hopefully we can get that out soon, because it's been a while since we updated it.
Thanks, Vicky. Chip, did you want to respond, add in any thoughts to that? And then I have some responses to your suggestions, Vicky, as well.
I've got more suggestions.
So we'll take a pause and get Chip's update on some of the guidance documents in process.
Yeah, so Ryan has done a really nice job researching and providing me with a draft for an urban heat paper. It's been sitting here and I haven't been able to act on it, blow the dust off it. What I want to do with it at this stage is it's kind of got like abstracts from peer-reviewed papers shoved in it. I've shoved thoughts in it. I want to make much more of a flow, like a readable draft document out of it. My thinking then was to push it up to the guy from Portland, Oregon, who spoke to us, and I'm sorry I'm forgetting his name, but he actually did the heat map with Matt Gonzer back in August a couple of years ago, and just have him take a quick look at it.
Thanks, McKenna. Vivek Shandas.
And then it'll be, in a position that I think it'll be reviewed by a professional and an expert in the field, and a very readable document, and then push it out to the commissioners to go through that process. With regard to the update to the climate brief, I started working on that, and that was a little bit more than a year ago. There actually wasn't much to update in the local science. There was a lot to update on the global science. And so again, I started shoving abstracts and bits and pieces from published papers into a Word doc. It grew into a monster. I have recently written a 15-page sort of a review of climate change in Hawaii with a little bit of global context. So Vicky, that's in pretty good shape. I could push that over to you and you could take a look at it and see, and we could just sort of trade ideas on what would be next with that.
That sounds great.
Okay.
Great.
And I'm not trying to make you feel bad about sitting on stuff, because I have this infinite construction guidance paper sitting here too that we've been struggling our way through. So just bringing it up. But the next thing I did want to talk about was the update on the construction guidance document. So since Melanie has joined the commission, and we've been working with Wendy Maguro and researchers at HNEI to really revise the paper based on stakeholder input from the focus group discussion we held last summer, and some of that, as Melanie said, is going to might dovetail really nicely with the building standards kind of more in-depth document, and I think we can make sure to link it as kind of as an introduction. So part of what we wanted to do with the revisions and are working on now is adding examples of policies and incentives from other cities around the US that reduce emissions, both from building operations and construction, and also looking at embodied carbon incentives, but maybe saving that for a more in-depth guidance document as well. So another thing that we were looking at updating is identifying opportunities and examples for professional education programs on building design and construction to meet those standards, which was something that we heard a lot from the stakeholder focus group as well. So we're pulling together examples of and resources for different communities to get professional education on these things. And so we've been meeting weekly, and we're really working on pushing that out, and hope to have a draft for everyone to look over in the next month or two. The other things that I wanted to mention that I've been thinking about before we move on to the Red Hill conversation, Rosie, was, and Chip mentioned this as well, I think we have an opportunity to really look more at compounding climate events and the preparation for those events. So like Chip said, the recent storm we had with the confluence of the Kona low and high tides and the storm, this is going to happen more and more. So how can we identify and prepare for those compounding climate impacts? Can we identify what the key possibilities of correlating or compounding events are, and then look at vulnerabilities that may result and how to prepare for that? Another thing that I think we can fold into the Red Hill discussion, actually, maybe I'll do the shorter one first, and that is a follow-up on the equity principles that we put out in our equity guidance paper. We put in a lot of goals there that I don't think we're living up to, and as a commission, and some of that is due to COVID. We haven't been able to get out to different communities around the island to have discussions in different places that are being impacted with different groups and really reach out. But at the same time, we've been able to have these conversations, these meetings online, which I think has brought in a lot more diverse groups to the table. So I would encourage us to go back and look at those principles that we committed to and those recommendations, and think about them in the context of each of our papers as we go forward, which I've been trying to do with the construction one as well, but keeping them in mind, and also committing to that focus group or stakeholder process with each of our documents that we put out. So Chip, with the heat one, you talked about meeting with the city and getting it reviewed by the Vivek from Portland, but what could we do to get some input from different communities that are relevant to that paper? And without seeing it, I can't say exactly what those communities might be, but some of it would be the city for sure. And then finally, going to the kind of the Red Hill issue. I know, Rosie, you brought it up as kind of a shorter term impact, but I think it's also very relevant in longer term planning. And one of the examples of that would be looking at kind of drought impacts and water supply vulnerabilities. So that's in the longer terms of climate impact as well. So I was digging through the Board of Water Supply master plan from 2016 last night, and they've outlined so many of these potential mid and longer term impacts already. And they were so ready for identifying these impacts. The Red Hill impact, they have it all laid out really nicely. They did such a good job, but we didn't, I guess the precautionary principle that we used for so much of our water planning was not applied well. And so now again, we're throwing money at fixing a problem that was identified a long time ago, instead of potentially spending less to address it in advance. So looking at drought and water water supply vulnerabilities in the context of kind of mid and long-term climate change, and looking at applying that precautionary principle to focus on places where we could potentially make the most impact by investing now. And that kind of folds into the Red Hill discussion. So Rosie, I'll turn it back to you, or comments from any of the other commissioners.
No, I mean, if I have the opportunity, I want to say that, Vicky, my priorities very much match your priorities. To actually kind of respond to the reminder on the nature-based solutions, that is something that I'm actually very interested in working on, a potential guidance document, but I would actually work for us to reframe the language around nature-based solutions to be much more in acknowledgement of the role of Indigenous peoples' stewardship and management of those, of those kind of solutions, and putting those forward. And when you brought up the NCA 5, I was actually exactly thinking about the section that Malia Nobrigo Oliveira kind of is the lead on, and kind of looking to that was going to be one of my inputs into that listening session, was how do we kind of bring together what people are calling nature-based solutions, but are in actuality kind of Indigenous-led solutions in that matter. So I think I completely am in agreement with you on that. I'm also in complete agreement with you on following up on the equity principles. In fact, that was one of my major concerns in June when we brought it up. Was I did want to I had actually checked in about when it would be possible to have meetings in person again, and that in particular wanting to have meetings outside the urban core in order to have the most inclusive and possible and have opportunities for all voices to present their ideas and observations. At that time, Vicky, you had asked Director Gonzer if there were any updates, and so I guess at this time I'll ask Nicola if we have any updates on when in-person meetings, or I know there have been some, but if there's any directive on our own in-person meetings again.
That's a good question. I would have to check on the guidance, or I'm not sure if Courtney has any updates. I did just see the latest posting of COVID infections incredibly high today, and I would say we've had some recent opening and relaxation and opportunity for more, but I guess we'll have to see how this situation evolves over the holidays and into the new year, and sort of hope that there can be more of that in a safe, healthy manner, certainly in the new year after what's probably, it may get worse before it gets better just with the holidays. So certainly something to keep tabs on in the new year. If I can find something more specific for you, I will let you know.
Thank you. And I think there are also ways that we can be very intentional in including voices rather than also taking things out. And one of the suggestions that I had was to invite the Youth Commission to come and present their ideas and their voices to the climate conversations. I know at that time, there was a charter to establish it and it was still underway, but I believe that they have been established now, and so that might be something. And I think we should, instead of waiting, I think we need to be more proactive and look for intentional opportunities, either to invite maybe neighborhood boards. I know that it's always informative when we have, can't remember her name, but she's on the YNI neighborhood board. It's always informative when they come, and perhaps we should intentionally invite people from the neighborhood boards, kind of like an open house town hall, to just hear back. If we can't take the meetings to them, we should invite them to come to us. So that's kind of what I wanted to say to that. I see Vicky has her hand up, and then yeah. So
I just had a quick comment. I just wanted so the neighborhood board representative from YNI was Shar, and yeah, she was fantastic. It would be great to have more neighborhood boards present. But I just wanted to put in a comment quickly that I love the virtual meeting option. I'm just advocating for other opportunities when we do get back to in person. I think that, having intentional meetings around the island with different communities is great, but I also love the
I agree. The virtual meetings has really strong advantages, and I think maybe what we should do is, so that's what I'm kind of advocating for, is maybe we should invite, in the meantime, we should invite neighborhood boards to come and specifically tell us what they're observing, what they're experiencing, so that it can also enter the public record. Because I think that my experience from working with communities and is that oftentimes practitioner knowledge or local ecological knowledge, their main opportunity for entering into a formalized record is through testimony. And so to the extent that we can invite people to share what they are seeing, what they are experiencing, I think that would be very valuable. And it becomes citable, that we can actually cite them in our guidance documents, that these are the actual concerns and voices of the people of Hawaii and Oahu. Any other comments to what Nancy, do you want to say what you just wrote in the chat and expand upon it?
Oh, sure. Aloha kako, everyone. Sorry for having my mic on at the beginning. We are really trying to bring climate change issues to the forefront at Hawaiian Homelands. And there's a lot of education that needs to happen. And we're trying to think of creative ways to do that, because we're kind of short-staffed right now because of the hiring freeze. So, if there's any way that we could coordinate, outreach workshops, having our Oahu Hawaiian Homes commissioners, if they have time, maybe they could come and talk to your commission about issues on the homesteads that they see related to climate change. And so we just really like to be there to coordinate with you folks, because these meetings have an incredible amount of highly valuable information. But we have to kind of package it and make it digestible for everyone. And I really like what you said, Commissioner Alagato, about traditional ecological knowledge and traditional practices. We're working on some projects on Molokai that are marrying the science with the TEK and looking at nature-based solutions. So culturally appropriate solutions. So we'd like to expand that to Oahu too, if we could.
If I could just a thought that occurred to me, with the rainfall style shifting to greater intensity over a shorter period of time, separated by longer periods of deeper drought, that intense rainfall is about the worst type of rainfall for recharging aquifers. And indigenous land use practices to slow the water and allow more recharge and infiltration is, I think that holds enormous potential for the entire community. And it's not well known. I don't know how well it is integrated into typical land use drainage practices from the construction industry point of view. But those sorts of landscape uses absolutely need to become mainstream in the fullest commercial sense of the word. So I just want to sort of put an exclamation point on that one. Thank you.
Thanks, Chip. And I apologize to everybody. My internet connection is unstable, so I've turned off my video, and it has helped a lot. But I just want to let you know I'm not being disrespectful. Yeah, and Chip, what you said is absolutely correct, and I think it feeds into perhaps some of the reasons why a nature-based or slash indigenous-led kind of stewardship idea guidance document might be very informative to other sectors of our community. Vicky, did you have anything else you wanted to follow up on that has been said? Does that cover everything? Okay, great. Chip, if it's okay, since a lot of what I was thinking dovetails with Vicky, is it okay if I just finish up with my ideas and then we can have yours?
Absolutely. Yep.
Okay, great. So as I had kind of started on, my major priorities for 2022 are also to put into practice our equity principle about when we are able to having meetings in community, but also being intentional about inviting people to come to the commission to testify, also bringing in the youth commission. I had also noted, and so I guess, yeah, another exclamation point, that I'm very interested in this nature-based guidance document. I'll bring something to the table that, you know, I think we have talked about before, but haven't maybe thought about really explicitly having a guidance document on the climate impacts of tourism explicitly. I don't pretend to be an expert on that, but I do think that it's something that we've all had the opportunity to see the experiment of halting tourism and then the return to tourism. And so perhaps there is some data that we can draw upon to kind of provide some insight as far as even questions of carrying capacity and how that might relate to our resources and climate change. So I think, you know, I don't have any definitive ideas around climate impacts of tourism, but I think at least I'd like to have it continue to be carried forward as a conversation. And then my final point, of course, is to bring up Red Hill. And I think, Vicky, you're absolutely right in that Red Hill serves as an example of something to talk about long-term, as well as the immediate short-term impacts. So my short-term priority for Red Hill would be that this commission drafts testimony in support of Bill 48. It just passed through its first reading. And so my understanding is that the fastest potentially it could go would be a second hearing in early January, committee in the third week, and then perhaps the third and final council hearing in late January. And so I think that there is opportunity for us to, if we're fast and efficient, and I think we are and can be, to draft and then bring that as part of our January agenda to talk about, and then submit that so that we can stand in support of Bill 48. And just for everybody's full awareness, Bill 48 provides an opportunity for the city to be involved in the conversation around regulating what happens at Red Hill. It basically is a bill that requires anyone who wishes to store underground wishes to have underground storage tanks in excess of 100,000 gallons, they must have a permit from the city. And so I think that this is a good opportunity for us to provide support for that bill. In the long term, I do totally agree with Vicky's sentiment about writing a guidance document along those lines. I was incredibly struck by the testimony of Board of Water Supply Ernie Lau, who I was not aware of this, and this was actually thank you, Vicky, for looking it up. He had mentioned that the Halava shaft was part of their resilience plan, and that it stands as one of the few water sources that can supply water without energy, requiring energy, and so thus is a major kind of defense when we have hurricanes or other natural disasters where our energy grid is knocked out. Yet, because of the pollution in Halava, he will no longer risk turning on that shaft, even if we have a hurricane. And to my mind, that immediately decreases our climate readiness. And of course, as Vicky noted, and as we all know, with climate change reducing our overall rainfall, the need to protect these aquifer sources is a critical climate defense. And so, yeah, I think maybe we can even think of stronger language instead of precautionary principle. Maybe we can think about critical climate defense as something that we have to start engaging in. And so those are all my major priorities, and looking forward to feedback from my fellow commissioners.
If I can jump in, Rosie, I support everything you just said. I think it's really important if we can pull together testimony in the early part of the new year in support. And I like the language you just shared. So yes, absolutely.
Great. I volunteer to start the draft and that we can bring to our January meeting.
Awesome. Thank you, Rosie. That's great.
Support it too. Thanks, Rosie.
Awesome. Thanks, you guys. So last but of course not least is Chip. And just as a reminder, Chip actually didn't come to the June meeting. So he hasn't had the opportunity to kind of like have that update. But just to update you where we're at as far as potential guidance documents, we have updating the climate brief, heat impacts, finishing up the construction paper, potentially a new paper led by Melanie on building codes, nature-based solutions, and then I couldn't tell if McKenna was saying she would be willing to do this internal carbon pricing as a guidance document, or if that was just more meeting with city on that. But I had written that down as what I'm hearing so far.
Yeah, I don't think it needs to be an additional guidance document because we have the first. To me, this is more if we could have some follow-up meetings, both I think in the commission, but also I can meet with city departments separately to better understand the budgeting processes so which this could actually be operationalized. I think I'm most interested in thinking through the implementation process of the guidance document we have.
Vicki?
Yeah, I just have a quick follow-up. That's something we had been talking about with the construction guidance document that I think applies to things, our work going forward. And that is kind of that work with stakeholders after we publish documents, like McKenna was just saying with the social cost of carbon. I think that maybe we had gotten a bit used to the idea of we write something and then it just is immediately taken up, but I think we have to put more effort into it. And so, we had been talking about how to take our recommendations from the construction guidance document out and, talk to them with different communities after we publish as well. So I think that might be something that we want to think about doing with everything that we do in the future.
Thanks, Vicki. That's really great. Wait, sorry.
Go ahead, Rosie.
Oh no, I just wanted to frame that as a, kind of as we go along. Sorry. And so Chip, looking forward to hear what your interests are in the next year.
Thanks. A lot of great ideas. So, as we know, we are running out of or have already run out of open land space for renewable energy generation. Communities are having difficulty accepting more solar and wind. Going offshore is an option, but that's also limited by, I guess, national defense issues. And so as a geologist, I'm aware that geothermal is an underutilized resource. And geothermal does not have to be confined to just the Big Island, where we are currently producing energy from geothermal. It's a matter of drilling deep enough. And I'm told by those who actually study this issue that any of the Hawaiian Islands could generate geothermal energy. It's just a matter of drilling deep enough. I shouldn't say just a matter, but the technology is very difficult. And when I was at the COP, I was speaking with a woman who's involved in drilling in Scotland, a 4-kilometer hole to generate geothermal energy in Scotland, a place that has tons of wind and tons of flowing water for hydro. And they're still looking into geothermal nonetheless. So Although my bandwidth is going to be increasingly limited as I take on new administrative duties at the university beginning January, I just wanted to plant the flag that I think a guidance paper from our commission on the issue of geothermal energy as a potential energy source here on Oahu is something I want to work on, and will once I get the urban heat and climate brief papers off my desk. Interested in any comments that you have.
So this is Rosie. I would have to excuse myself from a geothermal guidance document because I am personally not in support of geothermal because of its cultural inappropriateness.
If I can jump in there, actually, I mean, so from a technical standpoint, we know that there is geothermal opportunity, but I think Rosie's point in terms of the cultural impacts are really enormous. And so, I mean, if we are to take that on as a guidance document, well, I guess we would have to get clear on our aim. And Rosie, for that particular reason, I think I would request that you be on it, because I think that that perspective is critical. This is not just a technical question.
Yeah, if the main idea of looking at the diversification of other types of renewable energies and looking at geothermal is because there's pushback from different communities on placement of projects, I don't think that this is going to fix that. But yeah, I would definitely be interested in learning more.
Well, so number one, with regard to the cultural aspects, and again, I have not done deep research on this, but I just am aware that in New Zealand, geothermal has actually been embraced by the indigenous community there. And in terms of locating geothermal project on Oahu, we have Kapa'a Quarry, which is an 800-foot deep pit of highly disturbed landscape directly over the old Ka'ulau volcano magma chamber. It's already been a noisy, dusty, polluted area that has moved to the other side of the H3 where most of their quarrying operations are located. And also from a community perspective, I think that it's an opportunity to look again at how energy and communities are, what's the relationship there, rather than an external vendor or developer coming in and producing the energy, something that is actually community owned and operated, and provides direct benefits from a community that has looked into it and felt that they would accept it into their community. I think simply walking away from it without fully investigating the opportunities is walking away from an important energy source that's on the table.
So I have a couple comments to that.
Yeah.
The first is that I think it's really dangerous to conflate different indigenous cultures together, and Native Hawaiians are not Maori. A primary difference is the really significant role that akua pele plays in Hawaiian culture, and Maoris don't have pele, and that's probably why they don't have a problem with it. The second thing I would say is that there have already been cultural use impact studies done by Professor Daviana McGregor on geothermal, and so we should look to those documents rather. And you know, and where she carefully documented both the socioeconomic impacts as well as the direct cultural impacts. So those studies have been done. It's not that we haven't looked at them or people haven't looked at them at all. And so I would say we just need to go relook at them and see what they are. The third point that I would say is that your argument about Kapa'a Quarry already being degraded, so another thing wouldn't make a difference, is the same argument that people have with the argument for why another telescope on the top of Mauna Kea should be acceptable, because those that environment is already significantly degraded. And so that's also not an acceptable argument. And it's also, and we shouldn't assume that the local community is okay with Kapa'a Quarry either. So I think there's a lot of unarticulated voices that would come to the fore in this, and I think that it is a good opportunity for us to put into practice the equity principles, particularly around environmental justice for these communities. And actually, it is pretty dangerous, and that is actually something that did come up in COP, is that in our effort to move away from fossil fuels, we shouldn't endanger other kinds of ecosystems. You know, for example, deep sea mining is something that people need, but you know, there's a lot of really bad environmental potential impacts around that. So, you know, I think that we should explore this with caution. And my stance is because I have already read those cultural impacts. My stance is because I already understand what those differences are. And so, you know, I invite you to do the research and find the documentation that's already out there.
I am so glad I brought this up, and I've just learned a ton in the last couple of minutes. So I really appreciate that, Rosie. And I wasn't necessarily advocating for it. I was thinking that in the energy circles of state government, there's been a lot of discussion on this, and we've uncovered in the last few minutes that there's a lot more to learn about this. In that regard, and as you mentioned, a paper that lays all this out, I think might be useful as a literature review in many cases. In fact, all of it would be literature review, both on the geophysical as well as the cultural and community sides. Thanks.
Can I jump in with one more comment? I also just want to add to this conversation. I would push back a little on this sort of starting a premise with, like, we know land is constrained, but starting the premise that there is no opportunity for further land development of other renewable energy projects is, you know, of course it's difficult and it needs to be done well, but I actually think there's a lot that we haven't looked into in terms of co-location and using lands like median areas, right? Like not using agricultural lands per se, or there is quite a bit of that going on actually, and lots of pressure for that to go on. But anyways, I do think there's a lot of opportunity for co-location that we have yet to explore sort of in our land use planning for renewable energy. So just to say that as well.
That sounds like something worth investigating.
As a huge research project, yes.
Is it huge though, or is it just relatively a matter of doing a dive into what's existing out there in that particular area?
I mean, there's certainly a burgeoning research area within the landscape architecture and planning field around renewable energy co-location. Mm-hmm. And I see Melanie shaking her head too, so she's familiar. So it's a growing literature. It's global. This is a global issue, right? It's not everywhere is having, this is, you know, changes in land use always sort of will prompt this kind of discussion, but it's getting more sophisticated and people are having really interesting ideas about the kinds of, you know, the kinds of ways you would prioritize places where you could put renewable energy where it actually serves a benefit, right? For example, additional shade that actually is valuable. And then places where you can put it where it does no harm, right? Which is sort of a second priority. And then once you start getting into competing land uses, as we're experiencing in terms of competition with ag land in particular, then that's a different thing.
I just want to jump in and maybe just add, maybe take a step back. I always find mapping to be a very useful process. And I wonder, we had talked about these in past meetings that I participated in, of if there is an opportunity to maybe overlay a couple of these layers to really see where there are connections and opportunities, and perhaps might help to focus like this conversation on renewables, right? Cogen operation, opportunities, but it also helped to maybe prioritize where we should be focusing future conversations. So I don't know if that's a resource that is available within the city or something that needs to be generated, or it's a partnership between multiple organizations. But I think there's value in that, and it allows for everyone to sort of see information, digest it in their own way, and make their own sort of analysis as well. So.
I'll also note that Katie Rooney put into the chat the Ulupona recent white paper on solar and ag lands, and the link is there for everybody. Thanks, Katie.
We also have something from Nancy in there. A link as well to a paper, it looks like.
She cited a perspective paper that I wrote with Dr. McGregor and Dr. Noah Emmett Aluli.
Awesome. Okay, where are we?
Public comments on priorities?
Yeah, no, yeah, I know. I was just sort of, I guess that was a clumsy way of asking Rosie, where are we on this topic?
Oh, apologies. Sorry, my neighbor just started mowing the lawn. I think that's everyone. I mean, I think the one entity we might want to hear from is how this intersects with capacity and interest from OCCSR. So Nicola, I don't know if you want to respond or reflect on any of the things that we've brought up for priority. I know you've done so as we've gone along, but if you have some general overview or kind of feeling.
First and foremost, just a lot of appreciation for everybody leaning in. It's really exciting, the breadth and depth of capacity and knowledge and thoughtfulness that you're all, proposing for the year ahead. No doubt the city would benefit from all of these. I just sort of thinking about what's coming up on the horizon within our office or the city in the early new year. Obviously, you're talking later about some, emerging issues. We may see other of those. We've seen we keep getting right, these new impacts, new events, new challenges. So appreciate you all leaning into those as they come up. We as our office, we are really looking at the next steps of implementation of the climate action plan. So certainly appreciate you all, weighing in as different programs come to council, and so much as you are interested, such as the better building benchmarking in the spring. Appreciate all your thinking about where are other opportunities for innovation, for incentives, for particularly supporting affordability as it relates to sustainability and emissions reduction in housing. Obviously, housing is an affordability is just a key issue citywide that others are working on. I really want to make sure that we as an office continue to find ways where, we can support these mutual goals around affordability of housing and sustainability and our emissions goals, and how these can work towards each other, as opposed to some feel that they are only at odds. And I don't think that's true. And I think the more the city can continue to find incentives, opportunities, programs, best practices, innovations, ideas from the private industry, as Melanie, I know you're looking into, we really welcome. Certainly that we are going to keep moving forward, as Director Gonzer mentioned some months ago, on the Climate Ready Oahu strategy. And so, your help and support and just our next steps as that moves forward will be helpful. Obviously, you also had some presentations from DPP last month, was it, or recently? That will also be moving forward, in the new year as well, some of their work on those issues. So, and just bringing those up as, topics and ideas that will be coming forward, particularly in the first half of next year. So you can balance those. Certainly appreciate your voice on those items. And also, with respect to revisiting, your equity principles and paper, we are, we also continue to strive to, lead with values around equity in our work. We currently have an open position. We had the amazing Lala Nuss serve in the inaugural role of Climate Resilience and Equity Manager, and are currently going through the process to replace that position since she moved over to the Big Island. Those are not small shoes to fill, and we are looking forward to leaning in once we have somebody on board also. So appreciate that the dovetailing there, and thinking of ways that you all can support and work with the Youth Commission. I think those are really exciting ideas. Certainly the youth voices have been instrumental in helping to shape and move forward a lot that the city is doing, and put us to task really about what more needs to get done. Those are certainly some of the things. You mentioned a lot of, again, great thought leadership that you all can continue to provide, and I think continue to put forth best practices and good ideas to make sure that we are really leading up to the challenge, both in terms of the pace and scale of emissions reductions, but also really looking at how we can be better prepared. We know that we have some good good work that's been done, a lot of great leadership on adaptation and resilience, but so far to go. Those are just some thoughts that come to mind. Hopefully that was just helpful as you balance the many ideas with what I know is also the realities of limited time that you all have, given your day jobs and what you are able to put forth as your service on the commission. Thank you.
Thank you. Rosie? We good on this topic?
Yeah, that sounds great. I hope that this was like eye-opening. Definitely, we're very ambitious, and I think it would be good to look to our stakeholders to help us figure out what are our strongest, that they see, combination. We can move forward with a combination of what we see, using our academic knowledge, as what are the things we need to bring to the public, and what they need us to do in service to them. So, yeah.
Great. Any comments from the public on this agenda item? And again, noting that Katie and Nancy have provided some links in the chat box. All righty. Let's move on to scheduling some meetings for 2022. Let me just shoot out some ideas. It is a Thursday at 9 a.m. right now that today at least seem to work. How does January 20th at 9 a.m. from 9 to 11 work, which is a Thursday? Are Thursday mornings in general bad for anybody?
Sorry, Thursday mornings, is that what you said?
Thursday, yeah, Thursday mornings.
Oh, yeah, sorry. I teach 2 classes on Thursdays, so I would prefer a Monday, a Wednesday, or a Friday.
Monday, Wednesday, or Friday. All right. I like the idea of a Friday morning. Have a commission meeting and head into the weekend. I see nods all around. How about Friday, the 21st? Thumbs up from Vicky. January 21st, Melanie and Rosie. Okay, so 9 a.m., January 21st.
I just want to check in with Nicola that was my estimation of the timing of the passage of Bill 48 okay? And so that would be my only concern, is because in the next meeting we want to bring the testimony draft, the draft testimony for feedback.
Thanks,
Would
Commissioner
you like to
Allegado.
pass it?
Oh, sorry, is somebody chiming in?
Yeah, Vicky.
Sorry.
Oh, yeah.
When we want to pass it at that meeting, Rosie, so both introduce it and take
Right.
action?
Yes. So I'm just wondering if how that would play into like which of the readings, or we would submit that to for where it is.
I might ask Haley, or I'll keep looking. I know council have posted their meeting schedule, so let me just check with that really quickly. They did flip a little bit their order in doing committees before council hearings in the new year. So I just want to make sure I'm getting my details right here.
Yeah, I can chime in. The committee meetings for January are the week of January 11th. So if they do choose to schedule it for a committee in January, it would happen the week of the 11th, and then the full council meeting will be on January 26th.
So you would have it between those.
So it would work. Sorry, my brain is kind of fried.
There would be potentially an intervening discussion that they would have at a committee. So usually it would have to go, to committee, but then back to full council. So you would have an opportunity to weigh in before it went to the second full council reading the week after the 21st when you would meet. So it would still get in while it was at council. A lot of the very substantive discussions, can happen at the committee hearings. So it is up to you.
Okay.
You feel like you would miss that.
Sorry, go Chip.
We could do a specialized quick meeting of our commission sometime the week of the 3rd. Maybe just schedule a 1 hour specifically for that agenda item. Let's see, that would mean it'd have to be made public the week before New Year's Eve. But then we would meet the week of the 3rd.
And I will say, just for your consideration, any bills would have to be heard 3 times at council. So correct me if I'm wrong, Haley, but this has just had its first reading, then to committee, back to full council, back to committee, back to full council. So if you had your meeting on the 21st, you would still be, relatively in the early middle of the process.
Nancy's also mentioned that the Transit Oriented Development Council meets that Friday morning. I don't know. I'm not familiar with that council. Is that something we don't want to interfere with? Does anybody have an opinion there? TOD council?
You just might have some Honolulu City and County folks that might be tied up with that, like Harrison.
Yeah.
I like this meeting better, so I'd join this one.
Well, we like having you join us. So I think I'm hearing that if we go forward with January 21st we can still have an impact. We can still submit our testimony on the Red Hill issue. Nicola, nod if you agree. Yeah, okay, Haley gives a thumbs up.
Yes, they were also considering a resolution and that would pass sooner, but Haley, again, they would get that in before that would get a final reading at council. Correct, thumbs up.
Yes, I believe so.
Okay. Okay, so 9 to 11, January 21st, Friday morning. Thank you for the thumbs up. How about February? How do you guys feel about the 25th of February, the last Friday on February?
That's my birthday, so I'm not sure.
Oh,
I love that one.
I'll bake a cake and I'll bring it.
Well, I'll back Vicky up here. I have a NCA 5 meeting conflict that day at 10. So.
Okay.
Oh, right. February might be difficult. Vicky, there's a lot of NCAA consultations that week, right? Or when are most of them?
They go, they're throughout January and February.
January and February.
Yeah.
Right.
So, yeah, I don't think,
Okay.
the only one that I'm leading is the health one, which is on February 8th. So I don't think it would affect me, but
Well, how about the 18th, February 18th? That's a Friday morning.
Sorry, I'm going to be at a conference,
Okay.
but not that I mean, you could still hold it, but I can't be there.
How about March 4th? Skip February and go into early March.
Good.
Thumbs up, thumbs up. Melanie's yes, Vicky's yes. Okay, March 4th. Push my luck and try for one more month. Oh, we could do April Fool's Day. No. April 8th. Friday the 8th. Thumbs up from Rosie, McKenna, Melanie, Vicky. Okay. April 8th, 9 to 11 a.m. I'll stop there unless somebody feels you want to keep going. No. Okay. And public input for matters not on the agenda. All righty.
Actually, sorry, Chip.
Yep. Yep.
Just want to mention, I really want to thank Chip for agreeing to present to the Hawaiian Homes Commission in January. So this is very, very helpful. And Anu Kittle from the State Climate Commission is also going to be presenting. So I just wanted to thank Chip for doing that, and we're really looking forward to it. Although it's not going to be good news, we know that, but
It never is, although I am feeling more optimistic since I came back from comp. I don't know why. I can't quite put my hand on it, but thanks,
Okay.
Nancy. I appreciate that. And thanks for asking for the opportunity, actually. So tentative next meeting date, well, we've got that. January 21st at 9 a.m. Any announcements or issues? Yeah, McKenna.
Quick announcement around the NCA. So I think people have all heard us talking about this, but the public meetings for the National Climate Assessment 5th round are happening over January and February, and they cover a wide range of topics, including the chapter that Vicky's involved in on Hawaii and the US affiliated Pacific Islands. And the one that I am helping to run is the public engagement workshop around the built environment. And that's on January 14th. It's kind of early in the morning, but it goes from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. But anyway, it should be on the NCA website for those of you who are interested. And as I said, there's a range of it's organized both geographically and by topic area. So I encourage everybody to go check it out and to join the public workshops.
I have on my schedule, January 24th from noon to 4:30, a workshop. That must be a geographic one. Is that right?
Yeah, that's the public engagement workshop for the region. But Chip, there will also be the follow-up meetings for kind of the technical expertise sectors. So you can schedule your time wisely as those invitations go out.
Okay. And any last issues? I'm ready to bang my gavel and end the meeting. All right, it's great to see everybody. Enjoy the holidays. Be safe out there. Meeting's adjourned.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.